After introducing 35mm film to the masses in the 1930s, Kodak worked hard every decade to try to kill it, at least to try to kill it as a consumer film. There was 828 film, and I can't recall what decade that was. It was it was somewhat successful, but ultimately not successful, and any cameras that used it, Kodak eventually discontinued production of that film and orphaned all of the cameras that used it. Fast forward to the 1960s, 1963 specifically, and Kodak came up with another invention. This time it was the 126 Instamatic cartridge. The original specification for 126 film was that the negative be 26mm square, so that was how this film got its name. Instamatic referred to the fact that it was an easy loading cartridge. 126 cameras came in all shapes and sizes with varying degrees of complexity. Some were just simple point and shoots. In fact, more than some, most of them were simple point and shoots aimed at certainly just the amateur market, while there were more advanced models. They were made by both German and Japanese manufacturers as well as American manufacturers. And so 126 cameras existed on the market for some time. This is just a small collection of them. I don't have a lot of American-made cameras, and I might have one Kodak 126 camera, the X15. That was a camera my parents had given to me when I began to show an interest in photography. But even back then, I knew that that medium was not what I was after. So I might have used it once or twice. Possibly not. I just don't recall. The X15 had a fixed focus lens. That is a non-focusing lens. I don't believe there was any ability to adjust shutter speeds or anything. So early in my days of being an amateur photographer, that held no interest to me. So now in the 2020s, which is when this video was made, what's a photographer to do if they would like to use a 126 camera? Well, what's happened is that some enterprising individuals, I'm not sure who did it, came up with the idea of 3D printing a 126 film cartridge. So what's the difference between this one, which is 3D printed and now sold on the internet? I bought this off of an eBay user in France. I can't remember what I paid. It wasn't that much. I think I might have paid $15 to $17. On its surface, it seems like a lot. However, it's a one-time purchase, hopefully. And because this is a user reloadable film cartridge that accepts 35mm film. In fact, this one came preloaded. I'm going to open it up because I don't really care about the film that's inside. I don't even know what film is inside the camera. So let's look at a standard 126 film cartridge and talk about the differences. Already opened this. All right, so here's the, obviously this is the official Kodak cartridge, and that's the 3D printed cartridge. I think the dimensions are roughly the same. There's a couple of differences. This has a small little extrusion here on the edge. I don't think that makes a difference. When you look at them this way, they're pretty darn similar. In fact, each one should work. I might steal the spool from this and use it in this. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out if that's even possible. So the primary difference between these two cartridges is this has a small window on the back, whereas this one does not. The small window on the back indicated your frame number. However, keep in mind that this also meant that the film had a paper backing, and you can see that right here. Obviously, that would be more difficult with 35mm film because 35mm film, as you know, does not have a film backing. This is a reloadable cartridge, and I'll show you how that works. It has the top of it, the cap of it simply lifts off. It also allows us to see how a 126 film cartridge works. So you can see that on the fresh spool side, which is this side, the film is simply coiled up inside this cartridge here, or inside this part of the cartridge. On this side is your take-up spool, and as the film is advanced, it just simply goes from this feed spool into the take-up spool. There's no need to rewind 126 film. It's sort of like the other roll films. It's just a one-way trip. One of the last makers of Instamatic film was Ferrania, an Italian maker. Although this is branded Kodak, this is branded ADOX. I believe this actually was made by Ferrania of Italy. That company went into bankruptcy and then eventually dissolved, or this film is no longer available. Real quick, let's look at a typical 126 camera. Let's just use this one, the Minolta. They all operate similarly. So there's a small pin right here, and this pin really engaged. You'll see a small notch in the official 126 film cartridge, and 126 film was notched. So at a certain distance, it has a small notch, and this would pop up and it would stop the transport of the film. With this, of course, there is no notch. So very likely what you're going to have to do is just allow the film advance to stop the transport of the film. With most of these, for example, it's just one push. And so I think what I'll have to do is shoot some film and see if the one push is sufficient, because with this camera, for example, if you push it once to the right, you now cannot push it any further. It pushes it the correct distance and does not allow any overlapping of images. With this camera, I'm not as positive. Pull out the flash unit real quick. We'll open the back, take a look. Once you remove the flash, this becomes a very compact camera. So to open the back on this camera, there's a small red dot. If you push it while pulling to the right, the back now pops open. And you can see that small raised pin, same thing. So this is simply a push-pull affair. So I don't know if it engages that. Let's find out. Ooh, this is a tighter squeeze. Might have to do a little bit of work on this cartridge. That's a real tight fit, whereas this one fits correctly. So that would indicate, well, that obviously indicates that the height of this cartridge is off just ever so slightly. And it could be just, the finishing work on here. Because with 3D printing, of course, it could, if it overprints a little bit, it's usually not a problem with whatever your project is. Here, though, obviously it's not going to allow this cartridge to be used. What I'm going to do is I think I'm going to preload this. I'll see if I can preload this, let's say, with 20 exposures. We'll take maybe 4 or 5 exposures with each camera, come back, report on them, and talk about the experience of using this film cartridge and whether it's a viable alternative to the very rare and unobtainable Kodak Instamatic cartridge. So one of the things that I've read was that this product really failed in the market simply because there was no way to keep the film flat against the film rails, although it seems like it would work. In practice, what happened was the film cartridge might move just ever so slightly. So therefore, that meant that the film cartridge in some of the cameras could then move to and fro, just slightly. And remember, when you're talking about a focused image, just a small amount of movement of that film shifting forward, either toward or away from the focus point can affect the sharpness of your final image. But in any case, let's go ahead and we'll load up some of these cameras. We'll give it a shot. I'll report back. We'll see how this turns out. And so here we have it, my experiment into using a 3D printed 126 film cartridge is now begun. And so we'll give this a shot, come back and we'll take a look and see how this works out. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Or if there's a camera or something photography related that you'd like me to take a look at in a future video, Let me know in the comments below or send me an email at contact@camera-talk.net. And see you on the next video.